Hello, good people, and welcome to Sacred Remembering Podcast episode 176. I'm Sarah Poet, and today I want to talk about feminine ways of knowing. I am coming into this podcast recording very soft, very mystical, very aligned to what I am feeling and channeling, and yet this sense of just really desiring to stay in the softness of the feminine, in the depths of the feminine. And I'm wondering if you are feeling this way too. Seems to be, throughout the collective here in the Northern Hemisphere, we are definitely still in deep winter. We are wintering, we are going in. There seems to also be something very special happening actually in the field. And I'm just feeling into this as I start to speak here that, there's like a new level of feminine honoring going on, particularly in women. And I would ask you, like, are you noticing that you are deeply honoring your feminine, maybe more than you ever have before? Like maybe you feel like you're actually accessing the depths of your feminine or beginning to, or maybe it's even like just becoming important to you to do so. And so this time of year, this January portal, we say it's a new year, but that January 1st, like, isn't actually deeply connected to like anything astrologically or like culturally, symbolically. It's just, it's a bit arbitrary when you start looking at it. But then there are these like, portal ways as we go into January, February, March. And again, in the Northern Hemisphere, we'll be like emerging into spring and some growth in a few months. But really now is the time to be going, down and in. And there is magic happening, y'all. There is magic occurring in the soil, in the earth, in the depths. You hear me talk about the changes and the activations that are going on with the earth and with the earth grids. And today, what I want to do is speak for a bit here about feminine ways of knowing, and then I want to share a transmission in what I call the regenerative feminine. And so we will be deepening into this earth frequencies. So if you are maybe like desiring more of that depth, maybe you can find some of that here today in the transmission that this provides, both in the articulated words and then in the energetic portion. So yeah, so let's deepen into this. Let's drop in. So feminine ways of knowing. And I'm actually coming to this like a little raw, like a little in an emotionality myself and in relationship to the masculine. And I'll broaden into all of this, but I'm just setting it up that like I'm not coming to this topic here today like as heady or as much like, I've not got this all figured out. Like I am a woman who is in a process right now, a deep process of feeling and experiencing some ache and some deep desire, and it's wonderful, and I wouldn't trade it for the world. I love that this activation is happening in me, because if you've been listening to me for any length of time at all, you know that in the past, like when something has happened, I went to this safety zone of analytics, right? Which is common, for us women to do. And I am smart, and I wasn't necessarily wrong when I was doing that analyzing. But what is really like happening inside of me right now is this deep desire to stay down and in, and to like report out from the felt senses, to report out from the intuitive places, to just like stay in touch with whatever process is happening inside of me, instead of self abandoning in any way in order to go what I call up and out. So we have the down and in, the deeply feminine, the felt sense, the attunement to the richness of the present moment, of what is. And then sometimes, maybe oftentimes, we can pop up and out, and we go to the analytics, the productivity, the like hyper arousal, the the need to, we can associate this with productivity, with work, with the need to get things done, with the need to know, right? So I could be contrasting feminine and masculine here. And if you're watching the video, I talk with my hands a lot. Um, so, that feminine does go down and in. And then we do have, the masculine aspect that wants to go up and out. But there are shadow components of that like we don't always want to be going up and out and figuring it out and making something from it, and knowing what to do with it. Like we definitely need to be in the gestation to get the wisdom, and to get the wisdom from the deep feminine and the feminine ways of knowing. So let's go into like, what do I mean a little bit about feminine ways of knowing, and what we're cultivating here on this sacred remembering pathway. Um, ways of knowing what we know without needing to like explain it to the outside world. Trusting ourselves, um, channeling, you know, strengthening our intuition. So at the beginning of this journey, I'm being very general in what I'm about to say. At the beginning of this journey, we often awaken as women with a desire to listen to our intuition. Intuition is like the awakening gateway, y'all. Intuition is the awakening gateway. I know women in business right now who are like advocating to listen to your intuition and to bring the intuition to the table. Right on. You are not wrong. You need to do that. And you're beginning to advocate for feminine ways of knowing, because like we as women are not okay with abandoning our own knowing and our own felt sense. And if, I just think to where I was like when I was working in education, I was a school principal, and I just knew sometimes like what these kiddos needed, and we couldn't give it to them without like 8 months of data and research first. It's like this crazy situation. And I just like I wanted to listen to that, and I started to become like more aggravated that that wasn't more honored. And I cannot even begin to tell you how much that was the tip of the iceberg. Like this is the thing, is like intuition is the gateway, because since then, as I've walked this path of sacred remembering, and as I continue to, the ways that I know are way beyond any training that I've ever had. I'm not saying that I know more or that it's like this massive amount. It's like the ways that I know, right? So the things that I can channel, the things that I can close my eyes and see, the ways that I can help to heal energy, all of these things were beyond the current paradigm and the current structures. And I have been deep in this for a number of years. I know some of you have been as well, or you might desire to be, like you might desire to leave that job, or step out on your spiritual path and cultivate more of the truth of who you really are. That sacred remembering, that's what we're talking about here. I am here for that. I'm here to support you. And it is so important. And that knowing will continue to emerge and to deepen and to evolve. And, sometimes it's like you're sitting in a community of women, maybe close friends who have also done this, maybe, inside the Sacred Remembering live community where we gather and we're having these conversations and we're channeling these things and we're talking about things that like really don't exist yet. Like we're seeing the future and all of this and all of these ways of knowing. And it's like, if I like, could I even say this to other people? Could I even like be this or do this? Right. So I relate to that. And even though I have a podcast and a platform and I show up and I channel and I talk about these things, sometimes there still feels to me to be that like, I guess an isolation of, wow, like, I've remembered and cultivated, and this is really important to me to live this way. But like, how does this jive with the rest of the world? How does this jive with the rest of the world? And so, in this space of teacher, mentor, guide, leader, I can certainly encourage women to stand in the truth of who we are. It's so important. Like I've said on this podcast so many times that the answer to the future inside of women. We are code carriers. Let me just rant about this for a moment. We are code carriers. The new information for the planet, the new solutions, the new ways of knowing are inside of women currently dormant. The women who are listening right here, right now, the women who are saying, wait, I want to listen to my intuition more. Sister, yes, do it. Like walk the path, because when we clear the trauma, when we say yes to standing in the truth of who we are, when we say, just like, I'm going to live this path, then what comes through us are future earth solutions. I'm going to say that a little bit differently, like new earth solutions. I've talked about this a lot before, but new earth is like the energetics of what holds the future paradigm, which we know is going to improve. And we know it's a different template than the one that exists right here, right now. Go back and listen to episodes I've done, in the last few months. I talked about the fall of false structures. I talked about like, this is the time for the new paradigm, right? So the new paradigm is built in new energetics. And, we're each going to have pieces of that. Like I see that through my meditations, through my guidance, through my channeling, through my ways of knowing. Somebody else will have a different piece of this. This is why it's really important for us to come together, for us to be in community together, for us to share together. So, inside the Sacred Remembering community, it's not just the Sarah Poet show. It's not like I'm the only one with the wisdom imparting it onto the others. We open up this space, and any woman is welcome to say what they're seeing, what they're knowing, what they're channeling. Because if it were just up to me, that would be really limited, right? So we're cultivating this together, okay? Together. By the way, I just feel the need to say this right now. Next week on the podcast, I'm bringing on a guest. I'm going to have guests about once a month, maybe a little bit more often. We'll see. But I have so much to say to y'all. But next week is going to be a guest because it's not unrelated to what I'm talking about today. We're going to be talking about the mother rising. So, whoa, this is huge. I don't know if you can feel this. Whoa, y'all. Okay, what I already started to say today, right, about being down and in the deep and cultivating the deep, there's going to be a time where we need to bring that out. If we are cultivating these feminine instincts, energetics, etc., deep in the earth, we're going to do the regenerative feminine activation. So you'll see what I mean more by that. And then like we bring them up and out, right? So there's this activation that's happening. I think it's collective. I think the time is now. I think we are preparing for it. It's way more than seasonal. It is about these energetics coming back to the earth itself. And so we're bringing this cultivated knowing and we're bringing it back up and out. So how that has begun to kind of activate in me is this mother rising feeling. So next week I'm bringing on the mother rising, Margaret Jacobson, a friend of mine, and she hosts the Yin Care podcast. So so next week we're going to be going into this rising part, but we rise rooted, to say the least, right? We rise rooted. So stick around for that. That's going to be amazing. So, okay, so let's talk about this expansion, because and I'm going to weave in some story here. You know that I weave in some archetypal story sometimes to kind of like get the point across. And then when I share my story, you have this activation inside of you about how you relate to that or where you're seeing this theme in your own life, right? So, so there is a part of me, and I'm showing up here with it. I'm showing up on the Friday Live podcast. I'm showing up in my work in this emergent way. I'm still down in and deep, but there is also a call to stand up, stand in purpose, share what it is I am here on the earth to share. And this is strengthening me. So there's this, the pace is divinely guided. It's like following the instructions, right? Because if when I had gotten the instruction to do weekly live podcasts on Fridays, if I had skirted that and my feminine was like, I don't feel like it, or I'm not ready for it, I would not currently be in the activation that my life is actually in, which is, strengthening my capacity in this emergence by honoring the structure as well. So here I am in this, moment of life where I have cultivated so much and I'm in this emergence, and we can probably just expect that there's going to be some sort of learning or challenge that happens, right? In that. And, anytime we're in relationships, we're going to get challenged. We're going to get challenged in really the very perfect ways. So this is what's happening with me. So I'll just mention, the first is my son. My son is turning 16 tomorrow. So he is not a young child anymore. He's a burgeoning adult. And he is really in this space of right and wrong. It's almost like a duality. Like we're just like ping ponging in this fucking duality. And I'm like, I'm not doing this anymore, because he really wants me to be very logical. He really wants me to like be able to prove anything that I say. And this is just not how it's going to work. Like, first of all, I'm your mother. I have instincts, right? So these instincts, these feminine ways of knowing, they're present. I can't even hide it. I can't even try. I wouldn't even want to. And again, he really is asking me to be logical and to only share things that I can prove. So this is very challenging, right? This is challenging for the relational dynamic, but kind of sinking down and in here to my felt sense. It's a bit troublesome, right? Because we have to navigate this, but it brings up like a loneliness for me because I'm the only parent in the household. It brings up some fear because he'll say things like, you're crazy. I was talking with his new school counselor, and they were doing like an interview and asking me a lot of questions. Now, I used to work in schools. I worked in therapeutic schools. I get it. I'm super grateful for this therapeutic support for my child, right? And I get the questions that they have to ask. I understand what they're asking, these kinds of things. And this person said, does your son ever see things that are not there? And I know what they're asking. They're asking, like, is he hallucinating? Is he like, because that could be an indicator of some mental health stuff, right? And I said, no, but what I thought was, I see things that are not there. Like, I'm a mystic. I talk about other realms of reality all the time. Like, what would happen if my son or if that school counselor actually listened to this podcast or looked at my YouTube channel? Like, there is some element of these feminine ways of knowing being new to the world, and to own it outright could seem a little kooky, to some. Like, those of you who are women on this path listening to me and you're like, yeah, I'm feeling the activations of the soil. Yeah, gold frequency. Yes, standing in the truth of who you are. Like, if you're my tribe, you know what I'm talking about, and you know how important it is to go after that. And then what I'm kind of being faced with or noticing is that, oh, well, is the rest of the world ready for this? And I can't answer that question. I can't say if they are or they aren't. But that space, I'm in it right now. All right. So I want to talk about this other thing of understanding. So my son is saying, Mom, I don't want your beliefs. And I tell them, they're not beliefs, they're like lived experiences. Like, I don't have beliefs built in dogma. I don't have a belief in God because I read it somewhere. I have a remembrance of the architecture of living life that Mother, Father, God, like, built creation, in this architecture of unification and love. And because I've resurrected the feminine, because I've walked this path, because I know this through my lived experience, through my channeling, my child has no idea what I've been through in the last, 5-10 years, right? And the remembering that I've cultivated, it actually means shit to him. It doesn't mean anything to him. But he knows about things like, well, people have religion, people have dogma, they have beliefs. And he's like, Mom, I don't want your beliefs. And I say, son, they're not beliefs, they're knowing. And I try to tell him about gnosis. And I try to say, it's my knowing. It's mine. You can have yours. Anybody can have their own. It's not for me to say that my knowing is the way. If I were saying my knowing is the way, that would be something akin to religion or something unhealthy, right? Because there are multiple ways of knowing. Are there multiple truths? Or I'm sorry, are there universal truths? I do believe that there are. I said belief. This is funny, right? It's nuanced, right? So then we get into, like, who's correct? And can we explain these things in a way that they can be quote unquote understood? So this is coming up with a male friend of mine who, my heart, I'm not even going to lie, like, my heart opened and, like, is loving this person. Now, this happened a year ago. I'm just telling y'all. This is why I feel, like, soft and vulnerable in my feminine right now. So a year ago, and I think this also shows just some honesty about my own evolution of my feminine kind of, like, cracking open because it's not something that we can control. So actually a little over a year ago, like this person was in a relationship and their relationship was getting more serious and they were even talking about marriage. And when I realized that like he and I, our relationship was really going to change, I remember like we talked about it, and then I was like in the bathtub that night in the salt bath, and I just started like really crying, like crack open crying. And I was like, what is happening? There wasn't a cognitive explanation for what I was going through. It was like, whoa, something is cracking open in me, right? And it ended up that he left that relationship, and I shared my feelings with him. I shared what had happened. And then I actually kind of pretty quickly like shut it back down. And I was like, no, just kidding. I don't want to do that. And I'm we're all just doing the best we can, right? So I thought that it was like not what I wanted, right? So almost a year later, this same kind of feeling happens after I spoke with him. And it was like, I can't even deny this, like my heart cracking open, which I really have only felt like a few times with a few people. And, my son again is like, Mom, if you want a husband, you have to go date. And I'm like, no, I'll know it. I'll find it. It'll find me. I don't need a dating app. Like, I don't need to pursue. Like, this is just going to find me. And so, what do you know? My heart cracks open and surprises me. And it has nothing to do with my plans. It has nothing to do with like who I thought this person and I were together. It's just like this feeling that's cracking open. And it's so gorgeous because I can feel my heart. And I think this is really a time of coming back into the heart, the crystalline heart, the diamond heart grids are coming back online. I'll talk more about that forever, I'm sure, in more episodes everywhere I am. But, we're coming back into the time of the heart and the crystalline heart. And so here I could like feel my heart in relation to this person. But what came up was that in this span of time, in the last few years, while I've been deepening into the feminine and the regenerative feminine and the earth and my ways of knowing, this person has actually gone back to church and Christianity. And I mentioned this a few weeks ago. I said I was going to do an episode on that. I'm not going to do that right now. But what I'll mention as far as like why I think a lot of really beautiful men and like spiritual men are going back to Christianity. And I have not said this to this man. And so this is just like me in, you know, I guess my assessment place, right, is that I'm noticing that a lot of spiritual men are going back to Christianity. I actually feel sadness about this because there's more than Christianity. Like Christianity is a dogma. It is a framework, and it is a Christed framework. This is my opinion, y'all. This Christed framework that, it's really beautiful, but the books that were written, there's political influence, there is interference inside of the religion. So it is a template that gets us close to God. Now, a lot of women who listen to the Sacred Remembering podcast actually have God trauma because we're told in Christianity and religion that God is primarily male. Like there's not a space for female, for feminine ways of knowing, for the feminine hardly at all, right? And then you have these concepts about dominion and ownership that get very, very confusing. And there were probably original, like holy, you think about like original marriage or sacred marriage and sacred marriage under God in full union, like a unified mother, father, God head, right? unified Godhead, and then two people knowing God as unified, and then a union under God, that is a beautiful, beautiful template. We don't see that in how Christianity evolved. So many of us have been like, I have to leave that. Me personally, I cannot be inside of that infrastructure, even though I see why some of, my friends, I see why, like, famous people like Russell Brand, who I did listen to as an independent media provider. I think he's hilarious and witty as fuck. Like, if you listen to him, you're like, how does this man even think this fast? Like, it's very witty and funny. But, since he went back to Christianity, brother's like thinking he's baptizing people in the river. I'm sorry, not sorry. He's just kind of gone off into this way. Like, and if I try to listen to him now that he has, like, quote unquote found God and returned to Christianity, literally everything, it's like inside of everything he says. And, he's a seeker. He's a seeker. And I keep on Russell Brand's like Rumble comments, I'm like, when he talks about this, I'm like, brother, please go read Ascension Glossary, because this is a bigger planetary shift. It's not about going back to Christianity. It's about, there is an entire unified template that is coming back to the earth. And my God, brothers, like, we need the men to be in this original template with us. God, that is what I needed to say today. I just like feel relief as I said that. So, this man that, like, I love him through and through, whether or not we become partners in this lifetime. But, he's here in this Christianity space as he's returned to that. And that, I imagine that that is a template where he feels that he can access God most clearly, right? And for me, I cannot be in that space because the space that I have reclaimed and cultivated incorporates the feminine, incorporates unification and the energetics of unification in all of these ways that I've remembered. But then, and I've said it before on this podcast, like, when I was specifically speaking about partnership, I said, no man is ever going to understand everything that I've cultivated. And I got to this point on my journey, because I was like in my awakening journey, and I would be dating different people, and I would try to catch them up on like what I remembered and what I'd done and there's none of that anymore. Holy shit. Are you kidding me? It's like, I want to write many books, but even if I wrote those books, like, there is no understanding all of it. There is no understanding me. And that, like, so I can hold that, right? So as a woman, I'm holding this. I'm holding all that I've cultivated. I'm holding all the things I don't know. I'm holding the longing for union with another, where we access more of God together, right? And I'm like holding all of this in my system. Wow, it feels really full energetically as I say this here today, right? So I'm like ready for some of this up and out action. I'm ready for some of this expansion, and I'm ready for relationship. And then what started to come up like pretty immediately was, like, can he understand me? And like, he's seeking to understand me. Like, well, how do you know God, Sarah? How do you, and so I'm trying to explain the architecture of creation and the crystalline earth grids, and how is the new earth grid is retemplating, and how everything's actually retemplating in a template of union, and it's all under God. And, I was like, for a couple of weeks, feeling this feeling, like, I was feeling lots of feelings, y'all. Like, I couldn't even like put words to it, but like, it hurts my heart. And I just, like, if I had to try to fucking explain myself, I kind of wanted to just like fall on the ground and cry, like fall on specifically the earth, like the dirt, and cry. Like I don't want to. I do not want to have to explain like myself as if I have a dogma. Like I don't want to do that, with my son, with this man that I love, like with anyone. So it's feels a little tight, right? Because like there is a joy emerging from me that's like a joy of creating and cultivating and sharing more on the podcast and sharing more like in books and in writing and in like the body of work that I am cultivating. Is that actually is like a direct activation to further cultivate my work, right? Because there's like the thing of understanding. It's a both and. It's like there will be some understanding and there will be some activation into remembering, and there will be a holy discovery beyond this point. So this thing of understanding feels like a paradox in my life right now. Like it feels like I have these men that are saying, I kind of want to understand you, but you're kind of understandable. And I'm saying, I kind of want to be understood, but I'm also deeply I cannot be understood. At the same time that I want to be understood, I cannot actually be fully understood. And like deepening into this like just richness, this blackness, this embodied feminine that knows, that feels, that yeah, it's like the gnosis of like the cosmos, like it can never actually be understood. Even a belief in God, right? Isn't this so funny? Like religion, dogma, it puts it in a way where maybe we feel as humans that we can understand it. But it's the mysteries of the universe. And if the feminine is disconnected from that, like it was in the church, right? Because that's a product of patriarchy. But really, it's the product of the forces that caused the patriarchy that kind of wrote the script. I think I lost my train of thought there, but I think I was like really onto something too. So let me just pause for a moment. The very forces that sought to take the feminine out of that dogma, they did it on purpose, because the feminine in this case, the union is the access, but the feminine is actually the access to knowing God. So the deep feminine that is so unable to be fully understood. I think I said that right. You cannot fully understand the feminine. You can't. That's the thing. The feminine is the mystery. It is what we are remembering. It is what we are claiming and cultivating as women. So we will not be able to be fully understood. And we will not be able to fit into boxes. The architecture actually changes. The architecture changes such that the masculine actually penetrates the space of the feminine. The light actually penetrates the space created by the feminine. So the electrics and the magnetics create new structures. So when we say, well, this is an existing structure, aka Christianity, this is an existing framework. Well, that framework cut out feminine and then like gave women rules about how to fit into that framework. But what it also did was separated everyone from those feminine aspects of God, those solar feminine aspects of God, the unified God, that isn't known in Christianity. It's like not accessible. The paradigm, like of even like what feminine and masculine are inside of that framework is just not going to stretch. It's not going to be found. So the feminine is actually the access to the great mystery. It's like the way back for all of us. It is the road of discovery. And it's the road of discovery, not the road of understanding. It's the road of felt sense. It's the road of self-trust, deepening into the blackness, the mystery, the unknown, and like being willing to be with that and to lose yourself with that, and to lose yourself as in lose control with that, and let go of the idea that the framework has to exist first. Let go of the framework that there is an existing structure, an existing way of knowing. And to understand that we can access God? No, to understand that inside of an existing framework makes you someone who understands that framework. It doesn't make you someone who has accessed God through unity. Whew. So, all right, that's what I needed to say. So we all like need to cultivate this. And there's also a call that we come back together, right? So with my son, there's this perpetual who's right, who's wrong that he wants to bring to the table. And I'm like, I don't want that. I don't want that. It's a false dichotomy, because there are infinite ways of knowing. There are infinite conversations, to be had. There are infinite curiosities. So how can we stay open and in the curiosity about one another and our different ways of knowing as we bring it forth? And so just a message to the women here is that this is why we're down and in right now. This is what we're down and in for, because we're cultivating and we're nearing the place of expansion. We're nearing the place where we are to bring our cultivated feminine ways of knowing back up and out. I believe that what I've been experiencing is something that's quite mirrored in the collective, or will be, I would imagine. This, like, you can't possibly understand me. I do want you to understand me. I want you to seek to understand, but I also I want you to access me. I want you to like dive into the abyss with me, and I want to understand not understand, come to know the masculine ever more deeply while I hold that experience that I am having, right? So we have to come out of our boxes. We have to come out of our like prescribed paradigm ways of knowing. So to conclude this idea about ways of knowing for now, not that I'll say everything there is to know, obviously, but just putting a bit more of a framework, I guess, on this. So through our sacred remembering journeys, there's this intuition piece. There's this, like, even remembering that the feminine was oppressed and suppressed and like written out of the stories, written out of the books. Remembering and reclaiming that for ourselves, which is such a journey. It is such a journey that like no one can deny that of you. It is so important. It is such a journey that we have had. So we reclaim, and then we also very much learn to trust our bodies, because in the old paradigm, ooh, gosh, this is a whole thing, right? Like where we were disconnected from the earth, from the embodiment, from the bodies, from our bodies, from ways of knowing. So, we're just entrained to give others access to our bodies, give others access to, our energy, our minds, our emotional capacity, our caring, all of that. We were just like taught to give it away. That's a whole other topic, right? But this is why I talk about women's energetic sovereignty, because we are, well, it's energetic sovereignty, but it's physical, emotional sovereignty, mental sovereignty, spiritual, energetic. It's sovereignty across the board that we reclaim through this, because, like I always say, like the feminine was wanted, but it wasn't valued. So the feminine was always, it was like written into those old constructs that the feminine should be available for the taking, for the like enjoyment, but not actually valued. And therefore, like, this is why we're all messed up. This is why these constructs are just like befuddled, because, the value of the feminine, which is the value of creation. So if you're going to go into the deep, into the darkness, into the mystery of the feminine, you're going to access the mysteries of creation. You're going to access creational capacity. This is what we are recalling and remembering. It is a matter of like life. I don't want to say life and death, but like life and rebirth, right? It's a matter of how is life on earth going to continue? We must deepen into these like deep creative spaces, these fertile, fecund, like just damp, wet, dark spaces, like the inside of woman, like the inside of womb. We must deepen into that so that we know that so closely. And then we choose how to co create moving forward. But if anything thinks that it can create a fucking thing in the new paradigm without that feminine energy, it is sorely mistaken. It's like, this is why we've reached the limit on the industrial age. This is why that is done, because that was very important to build. It was very important, all that masculine energy that went into building. We can't create the new paradigm without feminine remembrance. We cannot create the new paradigm. I'm going to say a little bit more about this because it wants to be said. And bless you if you are still listening to this long podcast today. This is longer than I thought it was going to be. The deepening into the feminine gives us access to the creational, I'm going to say metaphorical womb space, like the womb space of creation. Who's going to remember that? Women. Women are going to remember that. We have to hold on to that. We have to honor that we have gone deep, and that is the power of what we are remembering. This creational force is what we are remembering. So anyone who tries to create anything for a new paradigm or the existing paradigm without the remembering of the feminine, or without partnering with someone who has remembered this feminine, it's just going to be like moving existing pieces around a chessboard. It's going to be like building with the tools that you already see and that already exist. It's not going to birth a new creation, and it's not going to birth and build the regenerative energetics that are unified energetics that are needed for the structures of the new paradigm. It will not happen. This is why also I believe because I've seen that this is actually where it can't be corrupted anymore. Like in the old paradigm, it was corrupted. And I don't want to go into that so much here, but as we remember this and the work that we're doing in regenerative feminine and sacred remembering to remember through the earth and to bring the gold frequency back through the space of the womb, through the earth, the metaphor of womb and earth, it's actually the frequency of nature that's incorruptible. And when I say incorruptible, I mean this. Like if you go stand in the woods and you think about all the politics that are going on right now, and everybody gets swayed by this and that, and depending on what media they listen to, they might be swayed to think this or that. Look at a tree. Is the tree ever going to be like persuadable? Not the well, yes, the consciousness of the tree, right? Like just go with me here. The tree is never going to be corruptible. The tree is never going to forget that it is of nature. The tree is never going to forget how the organization of nature works. It's never going to forget that because it's incorruptible, because it is pure creation. So just grok that, like contemplate that for a while if you need to. Nature is incorruptible because it's built in God's template. So we are remembering according to nature and creation and God's template. I'm using those interchangeably. So as we are down and in women, we are not just doing some like la-di-da, I'm reclaiming my feminine. We're not just like fighting for access, although sometimes it requires that. We're creating magical, alchemical, creational capacities. And as we have the bravery to reclaim those inside of us, regardless of whether or not anybody else understands, regardless of whether or not anybody else validates or really ever meets us, though I hope union happens for everyone who wants it. We can live those unified frequencies, with between us and God as well. Of course, that's necessary. Where was I going with that? That is the reason that we remember to come to these deeply, deeply creational spaces. So as you're on your walk of sacred remembering and you're having to reclaim your energy from this relationship or that relationship, and you're having to say that sacred no, or leave that job, or leave that marriage, or make really bold fucking choices where the world is still such, for a little bit longer now, the world is still such that it might look at you and say, that is a crazy woman. And you can be like, sure, you're right. Call me crazy. I won't ever be understood. I can't be. I'm an anomaly. But I'm going to align to this call of creation. And I want you to know that that's what it is. It's a call for creation it's like beckoning you to create with it. And so I know that that can be hard to explain. I know that that can be really lonely. I know, right now my heart is like, I have this worry. I spoke this to this man this morning that like I'm going to be seen as somehow less holy because I'm not willing to adapt to Christianity. I know that I am inherently holy. And if a man never recognizes that, that would be lonely. And it would be a missed opportunity for us to access like the depth, the heights, the rebuilding, like the mystery, all of it together, God's love together. Woo-wee. So keep cultivating your gnosis, keep cultivating your sacred ways of knowing. In the live Sacred Remembering community, we go through all of these topics throughout the year in our live calls. And in the Mighty Network, you are welcome to bring up whatever is alive for you, to ask the questions that are on your heart. We weave in our sacred noticing as women together. We have two community calls per month. We have energy calls as well, the regenerative feminine. And what I, am noticing is that as I begin to do more of these transmissions here on the Sacred Remembering podcast, and we open up the energy space, like we'll do in a moment, we're going to go over an hour again. And um, as I do that here, there is like an introductory level of the energy that is the regenerative feminine, that is this access to creation, these creational energies. And so the way that I channel and guide is often to take us into the earth spaces, into what I call the heartland, the new earth, right? And then there's all of these activations that happen where we can actually build our energy body. Our cells can heal and clear, our DNA can heal and crystallize, our blood can clear. All of these things like happen through these energetic activations, and like meeting each woman, where she is. And what I'm noticing about the podcast is that the transmissions that are coming through when I begin to channel here are intro, right? Because we're in the collective space. Anybody can watch these, right? And then when we're in the Sacred Remembering community, we are going deeper. And so the transmissions and activations are rich. I mean, I think everything is rich, but that depth of the activation, there's more depth of that activation. Then I have groups from time to time. I lead also private events. There's an event on February 1st that's open to the public. Please sign up at sarahpoet.com, look at the events page, and on February 1st, we are deepening into the earth and clearing the energetic connections that we all have as women in the inner earth space, and going to access the regenerative frequencies of the crystalline caverns in the earth. So that is February 1st. You can sign up at sarahpoet.com/events. And then obviously the one-on-one containers that I hold for women. And you'll know when and if it's time. I do 6 to 12 session packages at a minimum, often for women in transformations of some sort. Also, but any part of the sacred remembering journey, right? Like the remembering at the beginning, like the, oh my gosh, the aha. It's really good to have support then if you're in the like awakening stages, because that can feel very destabilizing. So I work with women on that end of the quote unquote spectrum. And then I also work with women who have been doing this for years, who are mystics and leaders in their own right. We're all leaders, but leaders in this space of, leading other women in their own remembering through their own soul skill sets, right? So I have, I love holding space for leaders because we need one another. Like we need community at this time. So, a wonderful, wonderful starting place. If you have made it through this episode, consider joining the Sacred Remembering community. Stay for a couple of months, attend the live calls. Feel the frequency, feel the energetic changes that are available. Because the other thing that I'll say with these earth frequencies, and I've lived this myself, is that there's a subtlety that we must honor. In the old paradigm, this like whole get rich quick, manifest everything you ever wanted in a minute, that paradigm, no, like that was not running on unified energetics or the regenerative grid. And so there is a cohesion, and of course, beautiful things can and do come to us, but it's not about power or push or consuming everything quickly or manifesting everything quickly, right? Like, we are honoring the ways of nature, and nature doesn't push most of the time, right? Like, nature has a process, right? And you are of nature, and you have a process that you have to go through, and that your soul has to go through. So the regenerative feminine, connecting into the earth, connecting into the positive earth grids, and really creating more energetic capacity, more new earth prosperity for women in the new paradigm, so that we can all be more resourced as we are bringing through our divine gifts. And, I would just say this, like, more resourced, so that we can stand up like on our own and say, this is who I am, and this is who I like, what I bring. And I'm in this right now myself. We have this idea that it would be so nice to have like Prince Charming come in and be this steady rock that we can like lean against as we're doing the brave things. And there's a beautiful activation when that divine masculine is in our lives. And we have to stand in this ourselves also and be activated. And that is the gold frequency, the God frequency of the gold frequency, that we're bringing back and like cultivating throughout our light bodies and nature's templates, so that we can stand up and be strong, but be in our feminine essence that we have cultivated. Because I don't know about you, but for a long time it was like, okay, I can like deeply cultivate my feminine, but then I have to kind of like get up and get out and do the things that need to be done. And it was like I had to be in my feminine or in my masculine, but the masculine felt like it kind of had to override the feminine. So this is what we've been living through on the planet, and now we will be embodying more of like genuine unified frequencies. And that is also because this is happening in the planet and throughout the electrics. I did a recent podcast episode on the corrected electrics and time. The episode that I did on time most recently is about the corrected electrics. And so we're going to be able to feel more of these unified frequencies in our lives, and not have to like pop in and out ourselves. So we'll be tracking that. Yeah, but obviously, to be a mystic too, you have to get quiet. You have to be in nature. You have to like cultivate these ways of knowing outside of the structures of the existing paradigm. So sometimes I worry, about, there's like so much feminine, quote unquote, spirituality going on in places like Instagram, but like we're not actually going to find what we're looking for in those spaces. So we have to deepen, we have to get quiet, we have to make contact with the all that is. And so with that, I'm going to close my eyes, begin attuning first to the breath and the body. I invite you to do the same. Just allowing that connection to the all that is and to the earth, and allowing everything that you just heard, everything that was said, to feel it kind of swirling around, right? So allow the activation of any of those words to activate you energetically in the way that is meant for you. And then if I said anything that is not meant for you at this time, you can just let that go. So we receive what is for us and we let go of what is not. And so imagine your body in connection with pristine earth. I'm seeing very dark soil, very, very feminine body. So this is what I'm just sharing what's coming up in my vision. Again, take it or leave it, but I'm actually seeing like nude body. So as I step into this deep connection with this soil, it's like there's nothing between me and the soil. So feel into that. You have your own vision, your own way of seeing. Trust it. But what we're doing here is inviting your connection with the earth, this activation with the earth that's happening, that's about to happen. This is for you, it's for each of us, right? We do it together. It's for each of us. So if this is your first time doing anything energetically with me, you know, or you might not know, but let me be clear that you are a sovereign being. You are sovereign unto God's source, unto this sovereign earth. You are purposeful. You are meant to be here. And my interest is simply and profoundly to help you to be activated in the truth of who you are. That's my purpose here on earth. One of them. It's my purpose through sacred remembering. So I'm here in that service. That's why I do this. And so you can be free to say your yes, your no, to do you, right? As we do this, there's no one manipulating your energy. There's no one coming for your energy. We talked about this in the last transmission on last week's podcast. Go back and listen to that if you'd like. You are sovereign and free unto yourself, unto nature, unto God's source. So you are that. You are this precious component of nature. You are this body, this flesh that is so sacred. And we're remembering that. We're bringing that back as feminine remembrance that we are not just the head. We are not just what we understand. We are the feminine ways of knowing cultivated, and our body is primary in how we know. This flesh is sacred. So deepening into your own felt sense of your body. Breathing with the earth connection. So I'm going to give you a moment here for that to sync up. You're going to breathe actually with the earth. It's like this organism of the earth is holding the organism of your body. And there's a remembrance here, an activation that's possible of syncing back up with the energetic current, the energetic pulse, even like the heart pulse of the earth with your body. Standing quietly in that connectivity, allowing that pulse and electrification to bless your field, to bless your body, and to bless all of the waters in your body. So there's this energetic pulse is activating, this current is activating the waters now. If you open to this blessing and the connection between this pulse and the waters. Allowing this throughout all of your physical body and also your multidimensional body, the multidimensional earth body. You're getting bigger now, expanding. This recalibration is holding. Literally changing the earth and yourself as the energetics of the light bodies of both come into greater convergence. Doing some clearing now of some layers of things that you're holding that are heavy, are dense, things around the womb, the hips, the pelvis. Allowing that to transmute through, you could imagine the crystalline waters of Gaia, just allowing and supporting this dense energy to transmute. These plasma waters of Mother are everywhere. So they're here, they are present, and they are able to transmute the density of the past, of old traumas, of old protections, of old beliefs. Resource fears are coming up to clear, and also how to put words to this. Ways that our resources were subverted, diverted, taken. And we're getting that very lightly in this meditation. Obviously, we can work with that. But it's so beautiful that it's coming in, right? Because this is a collective space, and that tells me that the collective is more ready for that. So, yeah, this honoring that there are these spaces. It's not odd or weird at all. That there are spaces where our own creational energy inside of our own womb space was actually subverted into negative birth grids, etc. I don't need to tell the stories right now, but just naming that that has happened through all of this misguided architecture of the past. And so we can clear up those siphoning networks, those tunnels, those leakages in our own energy. And so this is just a gentle acknowledgement that we are ready for that. We call our energy back to ourselves. We call our resources back to ourselves. Very good. So imagining that your feet, as they're touching the earth or in the earth, mixing with the soil, that they're also touching the crystalline waters of Gaia. So deepening into that connection with these crystalline waters of Gaia and sensing how they have a diamond frequency. Like the crystalline frequency actually produces like a diamond crystalline frequency. So bring that frequency up, imagine it, and then allow that diamond frequency to, you could see it coming up through your body, through the waters of your body. You could just imagine this diamond frequency reaching your womb space. Yes, sisters, yes. Through your torso and lighting up and reaching your heart space and the space of the high heart. This diamond frequency in the heart and in the high heart. And then up, and also giving yourself a diamond in the brain. Could be the pineal. Sense intuitively where that diamond frequency wants to go in the brain. And then it moves down the spine. Very, very good. So beautiful, community. So, so beautiful. So may this transmission, this energy transmission, whatever was meant for you today, continue to activate you in just the right ways, activate your remembrance, your awakening, this God spark within you, nature's spark within you, creation's spark within you. You know, I'm called to say this, like it's within that deep, deep gestation of the feminine and of the womb that the light returns, actually, like that first spark, that electrical spark inside the womb. That's a God spark. That's a God spark of creation. And so you are so beautiful, so powerful, so vast. No one could possibly ever understand all that you are. You are not meant to be understood. You are not meant to conform. You are meant to remember your place in God's creation, in this unified creation, and help to bring this forward for us all, and for future generations, and for the unified template on earth. And so this is new, this is beyond, this requires our remembering, and you are not alone. I am not alone. You are not alone, even though it can certainly feel like it at times. And may we all find our tribe and those close and deepening relationships in each of our lives. So, so much love to you all. So many blessings. Reach out anytime. Find me at sarahpoet.com. Please share this with a friend if you feel called, if you liked it, and you want to share it with someone for any reason, if you believe this activation would be supportive to another. I certainly appreciate you sharing and helping to light up the grid that way. So much love, many blessings, and I'll be back next week with Margaret Jacobson.